During the mid-19th century, the city of Perth Amboy was mostly rural, with farming, oyster harvesting, and brickmaking as the main occupations. Agricultural fields cover the northern and western acreage of the town, which is really just a small village. In this time frame, the average workday was fairly long. However, the overall lifestyle ran at a slower pace. With the transformation of the old British military barracks into the new Inventors Institute, Perth Amboy's own modern transition began. Within this Inventors Institute, Dr. Solomon Andrews built and launched the Arion, the world's first airship capable of true directional flight. In the western section of town, Eagleswood was established, introducing the new transcendentalist concepts to this old city, as well as establishing a military academy in order to support the war effort. And after a long and hard-fought civil war, the soldiers returned home to their families. Throughout the centuries, Perth Amboy City Hall remains in use. Right after the Civil War, City Hall was a hub of activity, with many new plans being decided there. Perth Amboy started to evolve from a village into a city. The intersection of High and Market Streets was the center of Perth Amboy, with new buildings developed towards the north and west. During 1866, on the corner of High and Jefferson Streets, the Methodist community built a new church. Originally, the design had a large spire, which was never constructed, although 4 smaller spires were later set in place. Regardless, at the time, this new church was to be the tallest structure in town, visible to all. In 1868, Alfred Hall was elected mayor with a Democratic City Council. They decided to install a town clock and pick the site where everyone in the city could see it, that is, the new Methodist Church Tower. At this time, many citizens had clocks in their homes. However, most did not carry pocket watches. So, the new tower clock served a useful purpose for the average person. It also worked as a new status symbol for Perth Amboy, as not all communities had their own town clock. By 1869, the clock was installed. Architect Charles Grand designed the church tower in an Italianate style, which was very popular during the mid-19th century. Here, decorative woodwork highlights the roof line, with carpenters and craftsmen having worked details that specifically fit in place. Wide overhanging eaves with evenly spaced decorative brackets shape an elegant curved gable. Such cornices, along with a shallow roof tower, are typical Italianate features. While the cornerstone was dedicated on July 24, 1866, it took over a year for the structure to be completed, and finalization of all the interior rooms did not occur until 1881. Our film crew is given permission to explore Perth Amboy's historic clock tower, located within Simpson Methodist Church. Inside, the cedar wood ceiling is most elegant, as well as visually striking, with a 6-pointed star in the center. Entering through a concealed trapdoor is the only route to the clock tower. Immediately evident to us is an ancient handmade wooden ladder. Unlike modern ladders, this one has a give to it. We ascend to the first level and opt to bring light sources along with us. Within the tower, there are areas of almost total darkness, contrasted by extreme light coming through the stained glass windows. So, a floodlight, along with flashlights, will aid our exploration. The church walls and tower consist of over 100,000 cream-colored bricks, which were imported via ship from New York State and laid on top of a foundation cut from Newark brownstone. 4 small Gothic spires were placed on the top corners of the wooden belfry. Eventually, these corner pinnacles gave way to rot during the 1930s and were removed from the tower roof. There are no elevators or staircases within the tower. Access to all levels is by several old ladders. Each ladder leads up to a landing. The landing's floorboards are old, perhaps original, with some planks being cracked, moldy, or just missing. Common bonded red brick lines the interior walls. While the exterior walls are of highly finished cream-colored brick, the interior ones are plain and simple. Openings in the brick walls allow entrance to an unfinished attic. Located 85 feet above High Street, the town clock has 4 identical sides which face north, south, east, and west. By an 1869 agreement, the City of Perth Amboy paid for the clock, kept it in good repair, and hired a person to wind it. To this very day, the city is responsible for maintaining its town clock. A complex 19th century mechanism of gears and machinery operate the clock, as well as the chiming bell. The main timing device is located within this large cast iron frame. It is powered by counterweights, just like many old-fashioned grandfather clocks. Counterweights were wound every 7 days by hand. However, during 1961, electric motors were installed, ending the need for hand winding. Yet another wooden ladder will take us to the next level, which is an entire story above. Our crew ascends up to the top level of the tower, about 80 feet above High Street, with a ladder bending under our weight. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, this elevation had a fine view of the Arthur Kill. From Troy, New York, large bells were imported to Perth Amboy. For almost a century, the Meneely Company enjoys a good reputation for manufacturing both church and civic bells. Within the Simpson Methodist Tower, 9 bells were attached to a large wooden frame. These beams are massive and are purposely made to stay in place. That is, the bells do not move. A striking device is connected to a timing mechanism in the clock room. These bells are located an entire floor level above their control machinery. Here, a cast iron frame filled with gears is attached to steel lines with pulleys, and also to a vertical iron rod with more beveled gears. This setup controls the workings of the clock, as well as the bell chimes. Only one bell appears to be functional for the hourly chimes. Each bell weighs over 7,000 pounds, and all were installed in the 19th century. A wire from the timing mechanism is attached to a hammer-like device which rings the bell. This complex mechanism is called a movement. Everything is connected to the movement, which includes counterweights, a leading off rod, a hammer wire, winding squares, a setting dial, striking trains, and a flywheel. The movement mechanism is not unusual. Around the world, most tower clocks are operated by such detailed machinery, and many towns proudly display these as the fine craftwork of their forefathers. Electric motors are visible, eliminating the need for hand winding. Supporting all the floor levels and walls are massive wooden beams, which appear to be made from solid oak. These large wooden beams brace the brick walls. During construction, these timbers were prepared at ground level by skilled carpenters. No two sets of joints are exactly alike, so to avoid a mix-up when assembled, the carpenters inscribed Roman numerals on each matching joint. The upper attic near the church roof is pitch black with no floorboards. For safety reasons, we opt to keep our exploration to the landings. On one of the upper tower landings, we discover a circular frame. Under examination, it appears to have been from an old church window, although any glass has long since been removed. By 1869, the area surrounding Simpson Methodist Church was being built up, with the town clock towering over it all. At a height of 85 feet, the four sides of the town clock allow easy visibility to the majority of residents. Within the tower, a very long single rod extends up from the movement mechanism to a set of gears connected to four other rods, which move the hands of the four-sided clock. For 92 years, Perth Amboy employed a keeper of the clock. The keeper's duties included cleaning, oiling, and hand-winding the machinery. This keeper climbed the tower ladders every 7 days to check that everything was in working order. The exact age of the tower's current stained glass is unknown. We do know that this glass has been restored and at least partially replaced over the last century and a half. Cleaning, new leading and reinforcement bars, and broken glass replacement are all part of the process. Here, some markings from 1920 indicate repair or new glasswork, possibly due to the infamous 1918 Gillespie Morgan explosion, and those shock waves could have damaged this stained glass window. Star anchor plates were common in the mid-19th century, and such cast iron stars are not just decorations. A star like this actually holds the building together. Each star is connected to the opposite wall by long metal rods, literally tying the sides of the tower together. This prevents the brick walls from buckling. Within the tower, the tie rods run horizontally across the room, with many just a few inches above the floor level. For over 150 years, such stars and bars have kept these walls stable. While many bells are in the tower, only one chimes the hour. Decades ago, all these bells did much more. Although not in current use, the other bells correspond to a musical scale. The Meneely Bell Company tuned each bell to a note, which can be rung by the pulling of wooden levers. Each lever is attached to an individual bell, as seen here in yet a different church. A song can be played via these handles. And our clock tower has a similar Meneely device, which we discover is no longer connected. With solid brick interior and exterior walls, star anchors, and tie rods, along with large support beams, our clock tower stands the test of time. We are impressed by this 19th century structure and all that it entails. Our film crew carefully descends down the flights of multiple ladders, exiting this historic landmark. The church itself was named for Bishop Matthew Simpson. As a close friend of President Abraham Lincoln, Bishop Simpson gave the sermon at Lincoln's funeral. Simpson also preached many sermons here in Perth Amboy, setting the start of each Methodist service via our town clock. While it may seem unusual to have a town clock in a church tower, such has been the case since 1869, this timepiece is part of our history, and it remains a unique and interesting feature to the city of Perth Amboy.